Okay, everybody, welcome back. We are going to work on the heel and the throat for the 45-degree elbow with the radius throat and radius heel today. So let's get right on into it. I pulled some pages from page 60 to determine these lengths. We're going to have to deviate from that formula that was used on there. That formula, the 1.57 half of pi, was for a 90-degree L. Today is going to be determine the stretch out length for a 45-degree L, so we're going to have to work on that a little bit. But anyhow, looking at the left, we're making this part right here as well as the throat. So the heel and the throat there, we got to determine those dimensions from end to end and see if we can get that calculated out. We're going to have to connect them both together because they are too small to go through the lock form machine all by themselves. It'll be the heel would be fine, but the throat will be too short because it's only probably about 4 inches plus or minus something there. Let's get into it though. So the width of the part is going to be an 8-inch duct. That's what we're going to make, and then we're going to have our take up on each side for our lock form machine, and the same with the heel. Throat and the heel exactly identical, 8 inches with the lock forms take up. Our lock former here in the shop is a 7/8 take up. Most lock formers are 1 inch. So let's go add that and figure out our length. So we got 8 inches, 7/8 and 7/8 is going to be 9 3/4 in width, and I've already cut that out of a piece right there, 9 3/4. All right, so that's done. We've got a part here of some random length. I already cut it, by the way, but you will have just whatever you need and make your throat dimension. So the next thing is we got to figure out the length of the part of the throat from tip to tip and the length of the heel. So we're going to look at the formula. Originally the formula was half of pi for a 90-degree L. So half of pi is 1.57. I don't know if it comes right out. Pi divided by 2. Yeah, 1.57, big long decimal. At that, and then you would multiply it by a radius. But this one here, being we're not doing a 90 degree, we're actually going to take not half a pi, but we're going to divide it by 4. So pi divided by 4 will give me 0.7853 decimal. That's drawn out there a ways. And then we're going to multiply that by our radius from our pivot point to the throat's the 1/4 inch where we bent it, which is 4 inches in our case. So we're going to multiply 0.78 times 4 inches, our radius, and we come up to 3.14. Now if I cut it at that, I'm going to be short because I did not add on my additional 1/2 inch length here and a 1/2 inch length above and beyond where our pivot points were based. So we're going to add 1 inch, a 1/2 for the bottom, a 1/2 for the top onto that. And we're looking at 4.14. I know 4.14 is not a perfect fraction, so I know 4.125 is 4 1/8. 4.25 is 4 1/4. So I measured that out, and on my sheet I'm going to just go with about 4 1/8, or right in between them there, and set that number. And then with my square, I'll square that across as it needs to be. Okay. So let's try to prove that before I go on. So we're looking at about 4 1/8, 4 1/4, right in there. So here's my part, my original part. I'm going to take the string or the wire or whatever you have there, and this part is going to actually, the lock form is going to wrap around the outside. So we're going to measure to the outside, not to the inside, with the wire. Let me lay this tape measure out first of all. And let's see if I can come up to anything close to 4 1/8. So right there where my finger is on the glove, if I set it, I'm looking at right about 4 1/8, and that's going to work for that one. Now let's try to work on the heel's length out here. Okay, so back to the book. I'll try to do this mathematically for you. So again, we're dealing with that 45-degree L, so we're going to go pi divided by 4, and I got that 0.78 number again. From my pivot point to my outer radius, I'm looking at 4 inches plus an additional 8. So I'm looking at a radius of 12 inches. So I'm going to multiply that by 12. And I got 9.42, but again, I've got to take into account from the pivot point an additional ½ inch here and an additional ½ inch on the top, so plus an inch. And I'm looking at 10.42. 10.5 is 10.5 inches. So let's see if that's going to work out again using the wire. Again, this one's going to wrap around the outside as well, so we're going to go to the outside on the opposite end of the part there. So let's see if we can get something close to 10.5 inches to work out by laying that. I'm using a wire here. You can use a string too, and we'll see if I can get this to pull out there. Hang on. We're looking at, let's see, make sure I got that lined up there. In the red numbers, you'll see it's just, yeah, 10.5. It'll work. So that's what I'm looking for my heel length, right about 10.5 inches. Okay, so let's lay that out next. So from the throat, I'm going to go an additional 10.5 inches. And I really shouldn't have to mark this because I cut it before. 10.5 inches right on the edge there. But you mark it, and then I took it over to the square inch here, and I cut that part. Okay, so now I've got my throat and my heel, throat and heel, laid out on the part there. Set that aside. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my 8-inch width of the duct, and I'm going to lay out those lock form take-ups. Ours is 7/8, so most people is going to be an inch there. So I use my scribe, find your dimension, 7/8 or inch, whatever you have, and run those across on the top and bottom, like so. Then it's time to take our notches out of it, out of the ends. We got the left for the throat and the right for the heel. So got the 3/4 inch notch set right on the 7/8 inch point there. Then with your tin snips, you can cut them off. Okay, the last thing I got to do on this part here is I got to cut out, let me flip it back around here, but I got to cut out the section between where these are connected together at this point in time. Again, they're connected together because this throat's going to be too short to go through our lock form machine right here. So anyway, just like before, if they were separate, we would take the notcher. These are the cuttings out of the notcher. We would just simply notch them out. So I'm just going to use them as my template. And we'll get them cut out of there. Both on the top and the bottom. Get them lined up. Okay, and with my tin snips, we'll get them finished up. Oops. Do the same on the other side. Okay, at this point in time, I've got the parts, the throat and the heel, ready to go. There's my throat and there's my heel. And I roll them around there. So we're ready to run it through the lock form machine. Here we are again at our lock form machine. Again, just keeping the lines up. We're getting ready to run this thing through, making certain when it starts to catch here on the wheels that it doesn't pull and distort your part. So keeping it tight against the fence back here. Turn it around 180 degrees and one more time, tight back here as it runs through. Okay, so over here we're at our squaring shear. I'm just going to cut my throat loose from the heel. So slip it in there again, right on our mark, make certain it's square, and slice it through. And now our throat and our heel are separate from one another. Okay, here we are, we're at the roller, getting ready to roll the heels. I'm getting these spacers put in the parts to prevent that from crushing your lock form too badly that we just rolled on the unit there. So we got to determine approximately what kind of an arc we need, and it's not very much on this one here on the 45. So what I've done is I went to the back side here and I've loosened these adjustment screws quite a bit. So let's open the lock on the side here, push down on the lifting rod, determine before I lock this which direction the arc has to be, make certain we don't roll it backwards. Now this is going to work out because there's the remaining piece of metal behind here that's going to be able to bend over top of it. So this is the correct direction. For this one, that's the heel, the throat will be different. So let's lock that down. And there's a roll clear all the way to the end. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like once we've got it through there. That looks like that's going to be really, really close. Already just slightly overbent, and that'll be fine. We can open that back up. Next we'll work on the throat. So the throat's going to have to get bent opposite. This is how I had the heel in there, and if I roll it that way, it's not going to work out here. So I've got to flip that over and roll it the opposite direction to match that heel. So it doesn't take a whole lot, and maybe just a little bit tighter on that one. So let's tighten them up evenly, maybe a turn or two on each side there, and we'll see how this works out. And that looks like that's going to probably have just enough pitch to make that inner throat. It's not a lot at all. Okay, before I go, I'm just going to remove the parts. We'll have them sitting there for the next one. Here we are at the bench again. I've got everything laid out. I've got the left cheek and the right cheek complete from the previous project. I've got the throat laying almost as is. It was drawn like this here. And I've got my heel set next to it. So that's going to complete part 2 of the 3-part series. In part 3, we will be assembling the material that we just fabricated. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.